know is, you know, yourself, the where, the what, the where, the who, the when, the how, the why. So we're going to start covering it all, and of course that will be paid for, and there will also be a specialist website alongside it that we will put any new information in there, any new research. Because as much as we think there is one place where we can go to find out all of our shit, there isn't. There isn't a website that is good enough that there's here is everything, here is everything on this, here is everything on that. So we're going to put it together and put all these things in the same place and put lots of references in it so people can really start to know their stuff. But even when someone does know their stuff, it's interesting because our full photos on the way out, she said, well, I think I'm ENM, ethical non-monogamous. And I said, cool. She said, but I'm not polyamorous. And I said, what's the difference? And it's a really important question because for some people there is no difference, and for some people there's loads. And asking someone what does that little title mean to you and what's that about is really important. The idea of these workshops is that they're a Q&A. So whatever you want to ask, that's what we start with. We go into other stuff. What normally happens is people go, oh, I don't know what to ask, and I'm not going to ask. And then because some people feel embarrassed about asking a question, I think, although embarrassment is really understandable, it's one we have to get rid of in BDSM and the sort of steps that we do and the sort of play that we do, because I think we have to learn to say what we want and what we don't want. I had a review last time. I speak too fast for somebody who isn't English speaking, so I'm really sorry. I do. I will think about that politely. I mean, to do it especially young if you want. I think that's pretty pissed off if I work. So I'm a bit back to front. I can be French and German pretty fluently. The rest of it isn't too good. But so it's difficult, isn't it, to be understood. So I think we have to learn to ask for what we want. We have to learn to say, hey, can I know about this? Or be able to speak to somebody, because a lot of us say yes to things we don't want to say yes to far too often, or we don't find invitation. So it's over to you. What questions do you have that you'd like to get started with today? It then goes a bit quiet and doesn't know what I'm talking about. And then you grab me, or we're here for the last 20 minutes, and then I'm asking 300, or answering 300 questions. So the idea of these is that anything to do with ethical non-monogamy, that whole umbrella, whatever it is, about relationships, about the end of, about the beginnings, about negotiation, about mental health, about how to, you name it, you ask it, I'll pretend I know about it and then we get somewhere. Is anyone here any form of therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist or counsellor at all? You don't have to admit it if you are. If you are, write to me afterwards, you can get a free CPD certificate. And believe me, they're worth about 60 quid a session. So if you want one, come to me and I can write one out for you. That's not a problem. So over to you. What sort of question would you like? What answer would you like from today?
So me and my husband have been together and monogamous for 15 years, and we are just starting to think we would quite like to explore this with other people, and we're both quite interested in that, but I would really like to hear your tips about kind of how to do that in a sort of a way that kind of tries to avoid any of the pitfalls or the issues that happen.
So if you're going to open up your relationship, I think the first thing you have to admit is there will be pitfalls. You cannot avoid them. End of. There is nothing, you cannot create an open relationship without hitting some sort of shit. And the most common mistakes are that we find is that it's the misinterpretation of words, the misinterpretation of titles, the misinterpretation of entitlement, and the fuck up around expectations. Because I think we're going to do this could happen, we're going to have this. If you're not looking for somebody together to sleep with, or to play with, or maybe both, or maybe none, what you'll often find is anyone who owns a cunt will probably get someone before the person who owns a penis. 9 times out of 10. Sorry, but that, there are a lot more people willing to offer. Statistically, that is more likely, especially if it's quite casual and easy. That creates a problem immediately because this person isn't getting things who this person is and getting something. You've really got to watch couples privilege. You always talk about all the things you want, how you want it to be, what you think this other person should be and how they'll be like, and why the fuck should they just do that for you? What about them? So I think you've got to be very open-minded about your own rules, your own guidelines, about what it looks like, and then think about, well, what about this other human being that's coming in? Because what do they want? You might say, no, kissing. Well, I'm sorry, I love it still. Better than sex half the time. Well, depends on the person, but most of the time, don't listen to them. So, it's really important to understand that the person coming in isn't there just to provide for you. They come in with their needs. What people don't understand is how jealous they'll be potentially, how discombobulated they'll feel, how awkward they'll feel when if you've got somebody's bits and pieces going to somebody else's bits and pieces, whatever, right here, it does have an impact on you. If you watch someone playing it and they play differently with that person compared to how they play with you, it does have an impact on you. One thing people don't think about is the finances of it. People think it's just about the psychology, and I feel, no, it's not. Do you know how much it fucking costs a day to get in a car, to get a hotel, to drive somewhere, to think about other people, to go to the pictures, yeah, I'm old, still take pictures, to go to the cinema together, or to even download and watch something but you want the other person to go out. How do you feel about that person fucking on your bedsheet? How do you feel about the cum all over the bedsheet?
Okay.
But do we get into that bed, or does that person change it immediately, or do you not? What if that person smells and tastes like the other person? For me, as a cut queen, I love it. I love that humiliation. I want to be used against me, but that person might not feel good about that. So that's a little bit different. How would you feel about that? If their smell of their perfume, cologne, aftershave, of their juices, of their hair conditioner, of their beard balm, anything is in your place, how do you feel about that? Some of the most common complaints I get from people, and there's a real classic story around this one, is when it was a heterosexual couple. She came in, he'd been having sex with another heterosexual woman. They'd been having sex. She walked in. She walked straight back out again. She couldn't take what she saw, but you know what she saw? What was said? They were using their special wine glasses from one of their anniversaries. And she was gutted. She was gutted that that special thing that they shared was being used by somebody else. More than the fact that they just had sexual play, it was the fact that those wine glasses had been used. So it's the things that surprise you. So I think you have to really learn to talk about everything. You have to have regular updates on it as to what it means. And I don't think you have to say if this happens, you have to say when this happens, we will take this track on it. We will do something about it and we will talk. I think one of the biggest promises you have to make is I will work on us and the value of us, no matter what somebody else brings or takes away or does. No, you're funny, come on in. That's what's important. Can you promise you won't prefer someone else? 100% not. Sorry, that's just not going to happen. You will prefer people. We talk about new relationship energy, NRE. When you meet someone new, there's a shit ton of chemicals going on in your brain. And those chemicals are wonderful, and they can last anywhere from 3 months to about a year and a half. However, the reason they dissipate and disappear is you cannot live with that amount of chemicals in your brain forever. It's just not going to happen. It's not healthy for you. You're up till 3 in the morning texting, you're thinking about that, you're smiling, you're walking around. It's fucking exhausting and mental. and that's the truth of it at the end of the day, but that's good. That's what keeps us together long term, because we get all this attraction and it also feels really lovely. And I'm like, I love that. And love doesn't keep a relationship together anyway. If you really want to learn about relationships, go to anything written by the Gottmans, Gottmans. You'll find them. They are just brilliant researchers and scientists, and they are a couple who've been married, and they're heterosexual, and they're both doctors, and they do the best research when it comes to relationships, because they do lots and lots of proper research. It's very science-based. It's more qualitative than quantitative, but it's really good research, and they do wonderful workshops and stuff. So,
what's the name again?
The Gottmans. If you look up the Gottman Institute, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram. They give away different bits and pieces on Instagram sometimes. Follow them. They talk about all sorts of different things. And what they're saying, and I think this is something to think about, we all think often that, monogamy is better than polyamory, or polyamory is better than monogamy. Guess what? They're the same. It's only if it works for you. You haven't got some higher ideal. You're not closer to some fucking god if you practice one compared to the other. That's not so. You've got to do what works for you that turns you both on. I also see a lot of couples where one person is leading it, and that's not always good either. You've both got to want this, and you've both got to be in it. And you've both got to be aware of the consequences. I saw a couple years ago, not personally, professionally, and he really was pushing for this. He's a bisexual. I said, I'm going to meet men, I'm going to meet women, I'm going to meet people, I'm going to meet non-binary, I'm so excited, I really want to speak with all these people. And actually his wife got so many more offers than he did, and she was out and busy and thinking, and she wasn't even sure if she wanted it. the whole thing flipped on its head for them. She was really busy, she loved it, but didn't like the relationships. Actually, he didn't like some of the relationships that she was starting to have. And he's like, well, I want to call back now. You open Pandora's box. So are you willing to take the consequences of all it will bring, what it will mean and what it will look like? If somebody is younger, older, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, has a bigger bank balance. I remember going out for years, I had a long-term relationship, 6 years with somebody who's 25 years younger than I am. And I'm not sure I would do that anymore. I think I'm quite a different person now, but that was back then and I did. And what was interesting, beautiful, six-pack, he's got like blah, 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 whatever those traditional fucking bollocks things mean. And it was interesting because I always thought, oh, I can make someone really young and really tight. For it here to 1,000 human beings later, and it makes a difference. That size of fist makes a difference, let alone that head. So those things matter. And but he thought I was going to meet someone really intelligent, classy, sophisticated that would suit me, who was successful. So we all have our own shit and paranoia, so you have to sit with your paranoia and work it through. You can read as many books as you like, they won't prepare you for your feelings. We can logically know about stuff. Our head says, oh yeah, this could be a problem, but when your gut's do it, you're like, if you're sitting now, I don't know if I can do this. So I think it's really unhealthy as well. Like if you're on a date, I've watched many polyamorous couples have, come on in if you want to sit down, there's a couple of seats here. And then,
You'll be on video there, darling.
oh,
Yeah.
You're on camera, sit in the corner.
okay. I'm wide enough, that would work. Although apparently you can see the lace in my knickers from behind. Somebody told me I was like,
Even better.
I'm not saying anything.
here, so what does that matter? So what you've also got to look at, the other thing about polyamory you've got to think about within all of that is, does someone have a veto? Do they have a right to stop you when they've agreed on this? So like, I've watched couples who say, I'm having a really lovely time, be home then, or see you in the morning. No, I've changed my mind, you need to come home now. Now what? That's not the other person's fault, that's an abusive, toxic to the other person. I've got to go home because they say I've got to go home. Look, maybe someone's got a broken ankle or they've just gone through the, I don't know what they've done, but maybe they could agree on those things and agree it with a third party or fourth party or the fifth as well. Have these conversations. What if you want a tattoo of their name and not that one? Like there's lots of things you need to talk about. How serious is this? What does it mean? Actually, have we spoken about this fully? What if I want that person to move in? What if something goes wrong in one of your things and that person calls you an abuser and you're with somebody else here and they don't? Now what? What if something goes wrong with them physically? What if they become disabled? What if they have a problem? What if there's some form of disability that comes up? What if they die? Now what? And what does that mean? I chose them because they were a couple, so they're safe, but now they're not a couple, they've broken up. Now that person's single, how do I feel about it? I'm trying to think of every scenario in my head that I've come across in life.
You've already asked the question.
I haven't read it yet.
So I think we should be scared. I think we should be, because I think care is in the word scare, right? And I think it's really important to remember that. Because you care, you might be a little bit scared. And I think it's a really good idea to have lots and lots of really good conversations. However, if you talk about it for too long, and you tick every box, and you've spoken about it for 6 months, you can't fucking prepare you for what's about to come, because your feelings will go, how I feel about that. My legs have just closed and I feel really like I never want sex again, or my heart's breaking. I don't know what to do, help. So all of these things need conversation. What's your biggest fear?
I think probably one of us getting really emotionally attached to somebody else and the other one feeling that time.
I can guarantee that's going to happen. I can guarantee that's going to happen. And it's interesting, we talk about love, but actually should we be more worried about attachment? Should we be more worried about new relationship energy? Should we be more worried, or should we not be worried because these things are going to happen? Just as quickly as someone gets very attached, things also unattach and change. Relationships change. Is it more about your consistency and holding on to the value of the existing? I hate the word old relationship. It's not. There's been hard graft in that. I'm an old woman. However, with that old isn't just old. There's a lot of graft in my age. There's a lot of self-improvement, self-awareness, self-reflectiveness, and a lot of work that I've done. I'm not just old. So how important is that today? This isn't an old relationship. This is a relationship that I value. This is something that I've had for years, and this person matters to me. We've worked really hard at this. How can we not destroy it? And what would break us? When I'm working with couples and couples and groups, one of the things I start to put in effect called bronze, silver, and gold rules. Who here works for a living? Sorry, if you don't, I want to know how you did that. Or can I know your parents?
I arranged a few, unfortunately.
What, your parents inherit me? No, kidding. So, it, I think one thing you have to think about when you're about to do all of this, if you work, you have a contract. And that contract is very specific about what's expected from you, what everything looks like and what you do. When you get married, your contract says, I will love, honour, I'll stay with you, and I'll work really hard at this. What the fuck does that shit mean? And even if we're living together, what is the contract that you have between us? What are the rules of your relationship? Because we can't say, I'm a relationship manager, so I don't believe in any rules. I can guarantee you, even as a relationship manager, you have some rules, because rules are governed by boundaries that we have and values and goals that we have, and they all matter. So of course you have some form of rule in your relationship, you always do. If the person starts shitting in the bed, you might not be okay with that. That might be a rule. I had a client that I was seeing who was a social worker, and they had a very troublesome 15-year-old who would shit under her bed every day. And do you know what the social worker said? Let her express herself. Whereas what I was saying is absolutely not. She needs to talk. Clearly, there's something going on for her. She needs love, but she also needs guidance and care, and she needs some boundaries. It isn't okay to shit under your bed. So you will have rules and guidance. Because if I put anything out there, if I take them to break the risk, are you sure about that? I've had many clients who played quite extremely. And she walked in here one day with her arm in a sling. She had 2 broken ribs where she was punched. That's what she wanted. But what she didn't realise was the cost of the 2 broken ribs. It's nice in a thought. That's really hot. Go on and break my ribs. Oh, I think you'll be thinking that if it was one of your lungs was punctured. I think you'll be thinking different, or the pain you have to deal with afterwards for weeks on end while you're repairing. And we get the same damage from psychology as well. The part of our brain that feels pain is no different whether it's psychological, emotional, or physical. I mean, it's well known. If you feel really, really like your heart's breaking and you're hurting, take a couple of paracetamol to keep your heart a little bit. Crazy, but that's well researched. Ow, but you can't take paracetamol forever. You have to sort out how you deal with the pain and what we're doing. So you have to be prepared. You can't over prepare. What you'll do is you'll just end up leaving it. Ooh, come on in. You'll end up leaving it for too long, and you don't try things, and then what are you going to do? You have to go in that way and round, sorry. So you have to, at some point you've got to try it, and then you've got to deal with the problems. I think one of the best promises you can make if you're going to have a polyamorous relationship is that whatever shit comes up, I'm not going to blame you, we're going to work on it. I agree to communicate with love, care, and consideration for our relationship. That's what I agree on. Rather than, I can't fucking believe you did that, you cunt. It's a little bit aggressive, and it's not particularly effective. However, it is most how it is how most people argue. You fucking I was walking through my village yesterday, and it was yesterday, and I popped in to get a jar for something. It's really ridiculous, but I just walked in, and there was this heterosexual couple with a child of about, I think this child was about 18 months. And they were clearly arguing about something, but his aggression just ramped up something chronic, and I was this close, my sister was says, I'm going to get stabbed. I was this close to walking over to say to her, are you okay? Do you feel safe? Do you need any support? But they went into the post office, so it stopped. But she said, give me my fucking child. I don't care what you're saying, you're fucking stopping it now, you cunt. Just listen, shut up. There's me, go to walk over to the right, and they go into the post office. And I waited for quite a long time to see if they were going to come out. And they weren't arguing by then. I still wanted to go up to her and say, no one can speak to you like that. But it's also non-heavy. I'm not allowed to interfere, are we? Have you met me? Not me, interfering. Even at play passes sometimes, when I see things, I'm like, I'm not okay with that.
Funny enough, under health and safety, not able to take health and safety in at the workplace, you're supposed to interrupt the issue. So I don't think it's any different.
It's interesting, as a therapist, I'm not governed by a lot of rules. People think I am, I'm not. There's the Terrorism Act, but you're covered by the Terrorism Act. You know, if you hear of someone being a terrorist, like a bomb yesterday, if you don't tell the police, you're done for the same crime, near enough. And if the Boston Marathon was the best example of that. Do you remember the Boston Marathon bombing?
Yeah.
There were 3 students that were with one of the students, and he phoned a young student at uni. He phoned his friends and said, fuck, and they said, "What are you on the TV? Shit, I think you're a suspect." And they, "Yeah, but please don't tell anyone." They were done as well because they didn't tell anyone. So the Terrorism Act covers all of us. The Children's Act covers all of us about what's good. And for me, I would have stepped in on that. There's an 18-month-old in front thinking, "Are you kidding me?" So there are lots of things, and we're also covered under the Money Laundering Act. Nothing else covers the therapist. If you think anything else is covered, think again. There's no legal definition that makes it. There are moral ethics and things that we can sign up to, but we're not legally obliged. If we hear of a crime, we don't necessarily have to share it or do anything. I prefer to work, some safeguarding I work under, but I find a lot of safeguarding doesn't help. I had a teenager very hurt by her dad, and we found social services with a mum, and the social services said, "Don't do that again." That's it. Whereas I work under beneficence, where I try and interfere in a slightly different way. It's just a different power. It's all about empowering the person, which is slightly different. But there are lots of things to think about. What if you see toxicity in that relationship that your partner isn't seeing, and you have to say, "I think that person is really not okay," or like you're just saying that because you're jealous. No, I'm worried, I'm concerned. So there are so many things to think about. It's not as simple as someone getting their bits wet.
If you're being recorded, if you check this later on, all the
The conversation's going to go on.
Go back years. You can just laid up 0.75.
Yeah.
However, you've got to try it at some point. And I'm a big believer in, as long as you agree to deal with the problems as they come up, if you discuss the basics, that's one of the best approaches that you can do.
I think I totally agree with you, but I think it
But, however,
I would add one thing, and that it's never possible to go back, to revert back to where you were. If something goes wrong, you've then got to work forward together, and as Deb said, it's the both of you versus the problem, not you versus each other.
I'd really agree with that. I say the same with play. I never understand why people renegotiate in the middle of play or change things. Don't do that. It's impossible to forget or change what's just happened. It's really easy to look forward to it next time. Never, I would agree with that. It's not a but for me, and it's a really important one. Anyone else got an opinion on that one? That polyamory and everything else? Have I got the thing? Have I missed something? What do you think? Okay. It's also beautiful. There's something about loving multiple people that's really lovely. I've had long-term polyamorous relationships where I've had incredible relationships, like as a sister wife. I really like that sort of polyamory. And yes, we were fucking and doing all sorts. But there's something about that camaraderie that she's around all the time. And I would help her with her daughter. She would do something with mine. We would do something together. We would watch something together and just snuggle up, or we'd be in the bath together and just wash each other. There's something really beautiful about it as well. That is, you can't get anywhere else. It is unique, and it is amazing. If we're open to learning from different people, you also learn new things about your partner when you're watching with somebody else. It's amazing how we think we're really open with our partners or people that we're with, whereas actually you're watching with somebody else and like, "Oh, I didn't ever like that," or "I didn't ever even thought about that." So there's something really beautiful about it when it works as well. So if it's something that attracts you, it's a beautiful thing to get into, as long as you're willing to do the work to get to it. So I would say it's worth the work. For me, everything, and I will come back to you, but everything is about cost-benefit analysis. If you're willing to do the work and you get the advantage, that's great. If you're not willing to do the work, fuck you for the advantage. And also, is this worth the problems that it brings? But I said something about monogamy. Sometimes you're with someone and you're like, it's very complex. This person isn't the person I'm with. Like, what's happening? And that happens to a lot of us because new relationship energy wears off. Any relationship. We are turning into a single nation. If you look at all the statistics and the research, more people are happy to be single. More people are happy to be maybe solo poly or be with whoever they want to be with without commitment. Some people are willing to give some form of commitment, that might be sex, it might be otherwise. However, we also know that people quite naturally do want to be with somebody or some people. There's something really lovely about that. I really miss sometimes the little things because I'm single. What I really miss sometimes is, you know, you just want to pick up the phone and go, oh my God, I just feel, oh no. I can't do that to my dad. My mum died last year, so really inconsiderate. I can't do that to her. My sister wouldn't understand half the sexual stuff I'm into, and doesn't. And so, like, and that's fine. I can do it to, actually, my daughters are pretty good. They know who I am and everything about me, but there are boundaries that I won't cross with my kids. I'll buy them a vibrator and paddle. And there are some things I won't talk about. Inappropriate. I'm their mum. I'm not their friend. I don't want to know what she does with that shit, although she just said to me, oh my God, look at my arse, quick, get it out. I've got bruises. I'm like, oh, that's a step too far. I've had my eldest daughter come here, haven't I, a few times, and she came on Mother's Day, and I'm still coming back here, quite a few years ago, and, you know, she wanted to stay for the party. I walked straight out. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry, if you want to fuck me and my daughter, that's not or any of them, that's just not something I'm into. It's because we all have boundaries. Incest is quite a big one. So there are some beautiful things that can happen, and you can all look after each other. And there's something about really caring for a group of people, whether you're sexually involved or not. We made a bit of a joke about LAM being family. And I was like, oh, fuck off.
What do you mean joke?
But what I would say is, Darcy, my eldest, had her drink spiked just before she got here. And I'd already gone. David and other people noticed. They noticed that she was acting a bit weirdly. It's not like her at all. My family, whether they're poly or not, people I really care about, took her in a taxi and got her home safely. So there's something really special about someone having your back, someone you can text, someone you can connect to, and having a few people like that. I think what people don't think about as well is if somebody dies or if somebody leaves or somebody breaks up, because that person is suffering and they're in relationships with other people that still carry on, and that's a big impact as well. Especially the breakup, because there are a lot of breakups. But it must be beautiful because you've got someone to hold you, as long as that person is willing to do that. So I think that's something really magical about it. It is worth it, if it's what you're into. You're going to say or ask.
Yeah, hey, so you mentioned it very slightly there, so coming out from the solo poly aspect, I'm very used to it. I spoke about vanilla and love relationship. It's very common ago, and just kind of putting my toes in, very new, I was wondering what kind of resources you recommend, or I'm obviously meeting lots of people, everyone's very open, I'd be really lucky to meet some really people, I guess, like good friends and stuff, but as someone coming from a very new angle,
honestly, I know people think I'm going to be really weird saying this. I think the first thing you need to work out is what do you want?
Yeah.
You need to understand your own boundaries, because it's so easy to be convinced by somebody to do something you're not quite sure about doing, or to, what you get as well is in solo poly or BDSM say, no, this is normal, this is what all cops do, this is what all cops do. You fucking kidding me? Or if you love me, you would. Huh?
Yeah.
You make me so proud if you did that. I'm so proud of you tonight.
Come on, try everything once.
Yeah. How do you know you don't want that? Because I want my art to work in 10 years. And believe me, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, I have some injuries that will impact me forever. As simple as my bursa. So my hip bursa, where I've been punched again and again, are broken. And sometimes you've got these tiny pockets. We were talking about that earlier because you were sharing something about somebody hitting somebody two-handed with this fucking great big thing with no warm-up. You have on all of your bones and joints and little places from your arse to your hip, you have a tiny sac. That tiny sac is filled with liquid. It gives protection and cushioning. If you sit down continuously in your arse, your arse bones, when you sit, if those bursts are broken, will cause you trouble. My hips cause me trouble. I have steroid injections in once or twice a year. I have for the last few years. I guess if I had an awful lot of chemo, shut up.
Bingo!
I had an awful lot of chemo and an awful lot of steroids, and actually that changed some of my pain in a different way because I had it so long with those steroids. So that helped me for a bit. So I think you've got to understand the implication of what you're about to say. I think you take your time. Go slow. You have plenty of time. I'm going to comment on you as a human being, so I hope that's okay with you. You are vibrant, beautiful, you have a lot to offer. So you'll be taken up continuously on what you've got to offer. And that can go away later. So it's so tempting to go for it. You have all the time in the world. I have slept with all sorts of human beings. My figures are definitely closer to 1,000 than they are to 100. I've had a great time in my life, and I've never regretted anything because I've always really thought about what I want to do here. The biggest resource is you. Books will teach you something. Talk to people. Come to workshops where you can engage rather than just read a book. Read that. Join places like that. Like join things, but take people aside and please don't listen to anybody who tells you that, well, apart from me, that this is your right way. Especially when they're trying to get in your knickers. If someone's trying to get in your knickers or want you to play or want you to do something, you've got to ask what's in it for them to tell me this. What is it I want here? What do I want to experiment with? What will this look like? And what are my boundaries? So solo poly is an interesting phrase. What does it mean to you? Do you know? Not yet. And that's cool. Yeah. And you're running with it. Yeah. However, what's important is if I say, can we go on solo poly too? Should we get together and do this? Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, I'm not into you, or, oh, this is my limit. This is my limit around age, or sex, or gender, or size, or anything. Yeah, anything. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. The best bit you can start with, and I know this is really old-fashioned, because I know you probably want to give you a list of books and everything else as well, is study research. Yeah. Work out what it is that you like or want. You're going to make some mistakes along the way. Please don't blame other people for your mistakes. If you have a session where you think you want to try something and you hate it, that person hasn't assaulted you. You hated it. I'm seeing too many people saying, well, that was abusive. No, you didn't like it, but you really wanted to try it. So how do we come and say, I didn't like that didn't work for me, thank you for giving me the space to know that. It's so different, and so many people are nodding for that. I think I'm so scared of doing stuff on others nowadays. Of like, oh, what will happen when the person thinks about it afterwards? I've mentioned it before a few times. I had a client who had somebody say to them, I really want to be pained, I want to be pained to the point of bleeding. I want my arse to open up like a good Singapore cane where I've got some stripes on those blood, and I want it to fuck me while I'm bleeding. I don't want anal, I want it to be good. There you go.
Somebody just added to that list.
Ugly, that's crazy. There you go, girl. Yeah. So like, I really wanted this. And when he woke up the next day, you know, there's a lot of blood on the bed, he'd had a great time, he really enjoyed himself, she was gone. And within half an hour, the police were at his door. She'd gone straight to the police and said she'd been assaulted physically, domestic violence, and rape. Now, luckily, there were some pretty cool police on duty that day. He did go in voluntarily, and he said, these are all the texts that we sent with permission. But, and I'm sure you know this, but if you don't, you need to be educated about this right now. You cannot legally consent to violence against you. But the police can still do this. It's bad and trust, it's bad. So in our case, it's even older than that. It's a very old act from the 18, I don't know when it is. If the offence against a person is 18 something, there's a couple of things.
1861 or 1862.
I can't remember what it is. All right. So what you came for? That would be helpful. It's very helpful. So we've got to be careful. Anyone here ever had a love Bible given one?
No, never.
You
Maybe behind the back says later on.
The 61, you looked it up. Right. So we've got to be very careful about actually things that we do and agree to as well, because actually, if the police were really feeling like that, they could have taken that to a case, potentially. So we have to be careful about agreements, about photographs. You put all that stuff on SpecLife, you put all that stuff on, and you go, look at this, look at these marks I've got. You come on in if you want. There's one here, there's two there. Come on in.
Whoever sits in there will be on video.
So, for me, you really need to think about the legality as well, because although you think, oh, it won't ever happen, it won't impact me, it doesn't take a lot for somebody to need to check your laptop if something's gone wrong. And if you keep all that shit on your laptop, they have a case for something else.
I think that one is anything more transient or trusted.
That's the,
Yeah.
so the brown in Spanish, it's called just brown. That's the definition. Anything more than trifling or transient, which means I'm really different. If you spank me really hard, I probably won't have a mark. If I do the same thing on you or you or you or you might have a fucking handprint there for 4 days, and that's more than trifling or transient. So again, think about that. Also think about, between all of you, so both of your answers to your questions is, what's your data policy? This really matters to me. What's your rule around photographs? About where they put it, who does it once the photograph has been taken, where's it going to be put?
I think that's useful to break up.
And when you break up, what does that mean? Why do you have a unicorn on you?
It's got it from Jesus.
Why not?
Manifestation.
Not
The one thing makes
Oh,
me
I think that call's compensating for something. Just saying. So I think data policy is really important. But if we break up, who do those photos belong to? What does that mean? There's a lot of revenge porn. There's a lot of problems. And if you're with a third party and you've got, so that person have a different rule about that. Oh my God, let's put this photograph up. It's so cool. Hang on, I never seen something like that. So again, with that, what are your rules? And all of these things for you as a human being, find yourself. And if you don't like something, just tell the person to stop. So like that hand, I'm going to okay? No.
Someone feels good.
Please keep it there. But if you're uncomfortable, I remember a guy was around my house quite a long time ago, and I think he tried to put his hand up my butt. I think it was at least 30 to 40 times I said, stop, and no. That's my fault. Actually, after the third time, I should have said, fuck off. Yeah, I've always done this.
Palm on the nose.
Bit of a sing, palm. You can kill someone like that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's some form of self-defense.
30 or 40 times.
Yeah, we don't have the same laws in England as we do in America, do we? It's slightly different. But so just know what your boundaries are, know what you're okay with for you, and experiment. And I think what's really wonderful when you meet different people is that you can do that. Actually, can you stop that? I don't like that. And the person listens. And I say, what would you like? Think like this, actually. Oh my God, yeah, let's do that. So cool. It's so wonderful when someone listens to you. My youngest, you might actually turn up after this. She knows because I bought a present. She was saying, you know, with a guy she's seeing at the moment, she's having the best sex and play she's had in ever. Like, they're having such a good time. But one of the things she said to him was, by the way, just because you're top doesn't mean you don't need to ask. You tell me when something is going to pay. You tell me when you want to stop. You tell me when you don't want to do something. A top isn't a fucking kink or sex dispenser. And they get dropped too. Just bollocks about sub drops. Fuck off with your sub drop. This is drop. And we all get it for different reasons at different times. Athletes get it. I work with cheerleaders all the time. Believe me, we came back from America a little while ago. We won 2 USA Championship titles. That particular group are the most successful cheerleading group in the whole of the world right now. The whole of the world. And if any of you watch things like Cheer on Netflix and Navarro, they've got some of Navarro coming over and they're doing this joint thing in the UK. It's really cool. The drop they had when they came back from America was passable to every single one of them. What do you need for aftercare? What do you need to be looked after? And I think when you're solo, that's another thing you have to look at. Do I want this from another person? And if I don't, how do I have it for myself? How do I look after me? What is it that I need? Maybe I don't want to fuck someone on Sunday because I've got to go to work the next day. Maybe I want to get comfortable on Friday. What do I need? Because we can't say, well, I need you to look after me for 3 days and have your breakfast and dinner every day. And it's a Sunday. It's just not possible, is it? If we work and we've got normal life going on. What are the rules around staying? What are the rules around sleepovers? What are the rules around children and telling children if you've got children? How open are we about our poly relationships? What does it mean? So I think if you're not on someone like that, let's join. There are loads of good writers and really good people who write really good stuff. My head will not go out the door when I finish just going, maybe that one. Yeah.
The other one, though.
Sideways. I'll just be stuck in the bar. Yeah. And so I think it's really like read and then question people, talk, ask, but question yourself above all else. That's what I would say. Understand your own values, your own wants, your own boundaries, and start with that. What would anyone else say, which is a good idea for someone to do if they're solo?
Don't be confined by whatever label. Don't assume that someone else's idea of what solo body is and what yours is.
Yeah.
And just because I define myself as this doesn't mean I want to do that.
If they're saying no to the night, make sure they don't decide to sleep in the middle of the bed.